I grew up in a culture where um, doctors are always right. And so going to a doctor to fix my problem um, was just, I mean, that's just what you do. And the doctors know everything and they're going to help. And so it really, for when a doctor couldn't find anything there was no blood test that could figure out what I needed and how to fix my problem. What I look back on now is how when we rely on or overly rely for chronic illness on a doctor that's going to fix it, a therapy that's going to fix it, a certain medication, looking for something to fix our chronic issues, chronic symptoms, then it actually triggers our fear response. It brings on a feeling of powerlessness.
Hello and welcome to True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada, a mind and body-based supplement company dedicated to promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. Here on True Hope Cast, we take a deep dive into the many psychological and physiological aspects of mental health. In a beautiful but often wild world, this is the show for you if you're looking for motivation, inspiration, knowledge, and real solutions. And today's episode is one of those deep, transformative conversations that gets to the very root of healing. We are joined by the remarkable Lori Clemmons, a wellness coach, chronic illness survivor, and author of Rewire Your Wellness, a holistic guide to healing chronic pain, anxiety, and fatigue. After living with chronic illness for over 25 years, Lori discovered the missing piece that changed everything, the limbic system, the emotional and survival center of the brain, and how it shapes the body's response to trauma, stress, and even nutrition. Now, Lori helps women break free from cycles of pain, anxiety, and fatigue by combining cutting-edge neuroscience with holistic healing tools. Her mission is to empower women to rewire their brains, restore their vitality, and reclaim their lives. In this episode, Lori shares her personal journey, explains how the limbic system plays a hidden but very vital role in chronic illness, and highlights the essential role of micronutrients in nervous system recovery and emotional well-being. If you've ever felt stuck in your health, misunderstood by the medical system, or hungry for hope, this is the conversation for you. Before we dive in, make sure to follow True Hope Cast and tap that notification bell so you never miss a life-changing episode. And for more on who we are and what we do, please visit truehopecanada.com. Enjoy the show. All right. Hi, Lori. Welcome to True Hope Cast. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you? What is going well?
I am doing well. So much is going well. I live in Northern California. We're having beautiful spring weather right now. So that's always nice.
Yeah, we're recording this in the middle of April, and it's such an unbelievable time when the sun's out a little bit more. It's 6:30 and the sun's up, and it's a lot easier to get out of bed when I've got two small kids. So it makes it so much easier to be able to do that. And yeah, it's like kind of life begins in April, I guess.
Feels like it. And the flowers and the animals, it's just great.
Yeah, it's a pretty special time of the year. So well, I'm glad that we're able to connect right now when we're both feeling great because the weather's awesome. That's wonderful. Today, we're going to be discussing healing the unseen, understanding the limbic system's role in transforming health. But before we jump into that topic where we're going to go in all sorts of directions, I'm sure, because it's such a fascinating idea. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
My name is Lori Clemmons. I am a wellness coach, and I work with people who are struggling with chronic illness, chronic fatigue, pain, anxiety, through one-on-one coaching as well as group coaching courses.
Beautiful.
So
I'm
also an author. I have a book called Rewire Your Wellness, where we go deeper into some of these topics.
Beautiful. And we're certainly going to talk about your book as well. So just to kick things off, I know that you've got a personal journey through chronic illness, which, just reviewing your website quite briefly, it looks like a quite amazing, powerful story. So I wonder if you could share kind of the turning point when you began to understand the role of the limbic system, the work that you are so passionate about now, and how that played into your symptoms, and how understanding of that changed a lot for you?
Yes, thank you for asking. I had actually been dealing with chronic illness for 27 years. It just came out of the blue: chronic fatigue syndrome, pain, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, mold illness, food sensitivities, environmental sensitivities, lupus, and just so many symptoms and diagnoses. And different times during those 27 years, I was homebound for quite a few of those years, and as well as bedbound for about a year and a half during that time. I had seen so many doctors
Yeah.
and tried so many different medications and supplements and treatments, and had a few, ups and downs here and there, but nothing was really working. And so I discovered self-directed neuroplasticity, which is a focus on how the nervous system can get stuck in these patterns that just continue. So even though the original issue may be long gone, the body is stuck in these patterns of pain and fatigue and symptoms. And the beautiful thing is we have the ability to rewire those old patterns. So once I started working with self-directed neuroplasticity, within about 9 to 10 months, I ran my very first ever 5K and really reclaimed my life back. It was just amazing.
Wow. Well, I've got a bunch of questions. First
Yeah.
of all, just to lay some kind of a foundation for some people, for our listeners, like, what's self-directed neuroplasticity? And I'd love to know who or what express themselves into your life to be able to be like, oh, like, wow, this is something. Because I think if you were to say some of those words to a lot of people, first of all, they wouldn't understand them. And it sounds like, you've had so many diagnoses. I can only imagine the amount of doctors and specialists that you would have gone to see. It sounds like there was just like a whole immune system kind of like shut down engagement with your nervous system as well. Like, so much happening. So what do you read? Who do you see? Like, what's the book or the something that makes you, that introduces self-directed neuroplasticity to you?
So self-directed neuroplasticity is, think about when we learn anything, it's difficult at first. Think about learning to drive. It's really difficult. You got to coordinate the driving, the feet and the gas and the brake. But over time, our body learns these patterns to where now we can drive, we can be talking to someone, eating something, and our body just knows how to do it because we've practiced it for so long. And the same thing can happen when it comes to illness patterns. Waking up tired every morning can become that wired in pattern to where the body just does it. And the beautiful thing about it is that we can change those old patterns. We can learn new patterns through our intention. So self-directed, our ability then to create these new patterns. So it's a relatively new field. It used to be that it was believed that only children could learn things in that way. But over the past about 30 years now, we're starting to see how much that we have control over our own learning, our own wiring in our brains. And this includes a lot of work from so many people out there. And interesting, some of it can come through some of our ancient spiritual practices about how we learn to guide our thoughts and our thinking, what we focus on. People like Rick Hansen, Daniel Ammon, people who really work with the brain and how that impacts our body. For me, it actually was interesting how I came about it was because I had been sick for so long. My youngest daughter graduated from high school. So I started thinking, okay, what's next in my life? And I realized that, I just needed to find something I enjoyed. Again, I had been homebound at that point, and I started thinking, I can maybe try and get out for a walk. That would feel good to me. So I started walking, even just a few doors down. I started focusing on, instead of the symptoms, instead of the problems and the issues, what brings me joy today? What can I be grateful for today? And then really looking into things like the power of gratitude and how it rewires the brain. And that was really just my turning point right there. And then being able to dive a little bit more into some of these brain rewiring practices.
Amazing. And as you mentioned, there's so many people out there, so many books, so many resources, that if anyone wants to have an introduction to neuroplasticity and the power of it, there's hundreds, or probably guessing thousands, of podcast episodes out there with incredible experts from all different fields that are recognizing that we're not rigid, we're not bound by even our genetics. In many cases, we can do amazing, incredible things, we can learn phenomenal things. And I'd love to just get your opinion in regards to your experience with having multiple chronic illnesses, and then having to go through kind of the conventional system, and how did that go for you? Because in my experience, in my opinion, I think that allopathic medicine has absolutely got a place, especially when it comes to like emergency care, but I don't know anybody that's had any like real proper recovery when it comes to like a chronic disease or a chronic illness that they've suffered with for years and sometimes decades. What was your experience with that?
Yeah. And for me, it was, I grew up in a culture where doctors are always right. And so going to a doctor to fix my problem was just, that's just what you do. And the doctors know everything and they're going to help. And so it really, for when a doctor couldn't find anything, there was no blood test that could figure out what I needed and how to fix my problem. What I look back on now is how, when we rely on, or overly rely for chronic illness, on a doctor that's going to fix it, a therapy that's going to fix it, a certain medication, looking for something to fix our chronic issues, chronic symptoms, then it actually triggers our fear response. It brings on a feeling of powerlessness, of not being able to handle the things that are going on around us, and it really triggers fear. And so many of the different therapies and doctors can be so fear-based. You have to eat like this. Mm-hmm. You have to take this medication. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it can really trigger that fight or flight response and create more stress, which then makes it more difficult for our body to be able to have the energy and resources to actually heal. So it's very easy to get stuck in this stress cycle when we're in those situations of frequenting lots of doctors to try and fix what it is that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think the word powerless stood out for me massively in your response there. I think that when we look to a doctor to fix us, or for a medication to fix us, I feel like we are expecting that healing, that treatment to come from something outside of us. And I think that we've certainly been, let's just say, programmed that way. That's kind of the way it goes. If something's wrong with me, I go to the doctor and they're going to give me something to fix it. But there's a very strange power dynamic in that. And you said you also use the word fear, which is very interesting. And I think that once, it sounds like you absolutely experience this on your journey. I know I have as well. But when you actually internalize that power and start using it for yourself, and you're practicing and experiencing the emotional states of joy, gratitude, love, happiness, etc., your body can literally rewire and begin to manifest healing, the opposite of, let's say, fear and illness. And I think that when we actually can grasp the healing process ourselves and kind of take a lot more responsibility rather than giving it to somebody in a white coat, I think that is a big starting point for a lot of people, because chronic illness, in many ways, it can take a long period of time to happen. Many different things, whether it's toxic exposure, stress, trauma, significant nutrient deficiency. Eventually, at some point, the body's not going to be able to keep up with, let's just call it, that negative frequency from all those different aspects. And we kind of expect to be healed with a conversation with a doctor or a drug or a therapy relatively quickly in, relevance to the years it's took us to get into that position. So I think when we can take responsibility and recognize that, okay, I'm in this journey now of healing. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And I'm in the present moment, recognizing that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take effort. I think that's when people really jump onto their healing journey. And it's not everyone that actually is able to recognize that they do have that power within them, because we've kind of been programmed that we need somebody else to sort it out for us.
Yeah. And recognizing that there are tools out there to support us in our healing journey, which is that's a very different feeling than the fear of, I have to have those things. So when we look at whether it is a medical professional, a treatment, a medication, whatever it is, this is supporting my body's work in healing and recovery and regenerating. That's a very empowering feeling, as opposed to the powerlessness of handing that over to someone else.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, I think that was a wonderful introduction, kind of sets things up a little bit. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure that story and that tale is all in your book as well. So I'll obviously make sure that that's linked in, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the show. But for those listeners who are not too familiar with what exactly the limbic system is, and why it's such a central player in chronic illness and healing, would you mind kind of giving us a little bit of an introduction to that?
Yeah, our limbic system is a part of our nervous system. And it's that part of our nervous system that is constantly on the lookout for keeping us safe, looking for things that are dangerous. So think of it as if you are driving along and someone runs a stop sign and is in front of you, your limbic system jumps in quickly. You don't even have to think about it. That limbic system jumps in, hits the brakes, and keeps you safe. So our limbic system is a very important part of the way our body functions. And so when we have a lot of chronic illness that may have gone on, or even like Simon, what you were talking about, exposures to toxins, or so many different things can trigger that limbic system. And it's not something that we control. So it's not our fault when it happens, but it can get stuck, triggered on. And so when it does that, we're constantly stuck in a cycle of stress, of looking out for more things that could be dangerous. A common thing that can happen is that perhaps for whatever reason, we might have a food reaction. And so that limbic system, in an effort to keep us safe, might start, oh, if that one food was not safe, maybe this other one's not safe either, or this one, or this one. And so it becomes more and more reactive, again, in that effort to keep us safe. Kind of like a smoke alarm that goes off not only when there's a fire, but maybe it goes off when you burn the toast. And then it gets even more sensitive and starts going off when you even turn on the stove. And so again, it's the way that our body keeps us safe. We don't need it that much anymore. But in prior cultures, think about if you were out hunting for a meal, and a lion was rustling in the bushes, you would want your limbic system to be on guard for that.
Yeah.
Now we don't need it so much, but it's so easy to get stuck in it because it's still a part of us, even though our culture has changed.
Yeah, I think the cultural aspect is very, very important because, I think a lot of us kind of forget that, our human bodies have been designed to live in a very different environment, and our culture has evolved significantly more than our biology has. And we have to kind of understand that a little bit more, especially when it comes to stress and our trauma response. I think that's a very big part of the, I guess, healing educational piece, is being able to kind of like understand that and be a little bit empathetic and kinder to yourself, to recognize this is actually just my biology doing its thing, but it's just maybe like not wired quite correctly right now, because I'm not needing to be freaked out for lions in the bushes so much anymore. So it's a super interesting, amazing pathway that's, millions of years of evolution. Is very, very fascinating. And you often talk about within your content the unseen roots of illness. And I'd love to know, like, how do emotional trauma, stress, or past experiences get actually wired into our nervous system and then manifest as physical symptoms? I think that's an interesting phenomena.
Yeah. We are the culmination of a lifetime of behaviors, emotions, thoughts, experiences. And our brain wires those things. So we learn so much in our early years through the people around us who model whether life is safe, whether life is not safe. As children, we pick that up. Mm-hmm. We pick up the messages from our culture. We need to look a certain way. We need to behave a certain way. We need to be a certain way. And those messages can get into our limbic system and create emotional patterns of fear, of anxiety, or emotional patterns of confidence and belonging and connection. And so not only as a child, but as we go through life, all of our experiences are communicating with our nervous system, whether we're safe or not. Mm-hmm. And so when we come into a new situation, we bring those experiences with us. And so quite often we're not even aware of maybe our thought patterns going on beneath the surface, our emotions going on beneath the surface, but yet those are all with us throughout our day. And so we can be stuck in these old patterns without even knowing it. And then we can just keep wiring them deeper and deeper and deeper, whether it's fear or whether it's confidence. And so when those emotions are stuck like that, it can keep that limbic system triggered. And when that limbic system is triggered, our body actually goes through physical changes. The limbic system causes the release of stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. And when those chemicals are running in our body and our body is focused on fighting or fleeing, then we don't have the ability for our body to send energy toward healing and recovery. And so then that can just keep those chronic health challenges going.
Absolutely. Yeah, you reminded me of a book my kids have got, and if it's basically about this little girl and a family. They live in that she's born and lives in a war-torn city, and she doesn't leave there till she's 7 years old, and her body and her brain and her whole physical being doesn't understand anything other than stress, trauma, fear, scarcity. So her biology, her nervous system has evolved to live in those surroundings, primarily as a survival mechanism, right? And then she moves to a completely safe, normal environment, And even the loud noises of the car, or even the experience of like Halloween and people dressing up as ghosts and skeletons, trigger significant responses within this little girl. And she doesn't understand that this is a safe place because she's got no reference for that whatsoever. But over time, in that safer environment, things change for is changing. You know, the neuroplasticity piece that we talked about, you know, adapting to that new environment. It's just a very, very simple example, I guess, of how that, you know, we can change our brains, we can change our nervous systems, and we can change from, you know, waking up every day in a completely stressed state to the opposite of that.
Yeah. And even, you know, a few years back, we went through COVID. Even having a week, 2 weeks of, oh no, this is scary. How bad is it going to be? That can trigger that limbic system. And if we're not able to work through it at that point, it can stay triggered to where then that limbic system stays on guard, really draining our energy, draining our ability to be able to heal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are probably still, let's just say, suffering the symptoms of those crazy years. And even we can look back at significant traumas that have happened, whether that's a natural disaster, for example, or like 9/11. There are people that suffer for years and years after that. And it's an interesting piece. So our flagship product here at True Hope Canada is a broad spectrum micronutrient formula, 36 ingredients, and it's got 35 peer-reviewed medical journals to its name. And a couple of those papers were done in Christchurch, New Zealand, all on PTSD and how people respond post-earthquake, whether they're going to be on the supplement or off it in the placebo section. And what we found not what we found, but what was found by the researchers in these trials is that people who were consuming good quality nutrition were able to recalibrate their nervous system significantly quicker than those people whose bodies were in significant lack because they were still in that stress state. And if you're unable to provide your body with the necessary ingredients it needs to do all of its amazing functions, and then you throw an earthquake on top of it, it's going to be very difficult for people to kind of come out of that. So yeah, that's just an interesting piece, because I'd love to talk a little bit about your experience with micronutrients and nutrition and supplementation, and how that supports the nervous system, and especially the limbic part of the brain, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. And again, it really comes down to how we're looking at that external. You know, I know early in my journey, I went through a lot of different diets and supplementation and just trying everything out there, but it was from a place of fear. And so really all of that was doing was reinforcing to my limbic system, the world's not safe. We got to find the answer. And so nothing was really working. When I did start working with my limbic system and started viewing my relationship with the world around me from a place of, I am able to find support for my healing. I have choices. Being able to view my diet and any supplements that I take from a place of self-care, rather than fear, I was able to make better choices. And I absolutely do watch what I eat, in the sense of, is this going to support my body in what I'm doing right now? Being able to exercise, being able to, whatever I do, see it from a place of, how can I support my emotional wellness, my physical wellness, my mental wellness, and then my relational wellness, again, from that place of having choice, having power, as opposed to the old fear-based, I have to do this. I have to rely on things outside of me to fix my problem. So a huge way. And I think the mindset that we come into these things with is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing point, especially about like when people are looking to either find a diet or find a supplement that's going to, you know, fix their problem, there's certainly, there's scarcity around that. There's fear wrapped around that. And when your body is in that state, your digestive system is in no state whatsoever to absorb nutrients and, you know, provide the rest of your body with, you know, good quality ingredients to help you thrive and heal. So, and we see so many people. What's kind of different with Empower Plus, our primary product here, is that we've put it in such bioavailable forms and we've chelated our minerals in such a fact that you could actually have a very poor, stressed out digestive tract, for example, and you're still going to be able to absorb the nutrition. So a lot of people we experience are able to actually, even in stressed states, whether they've gone post-earthquake or they've suffered a loss or that they've had chronic illness for many, many years, they're actually able to use our product to obtain the right types of nutrition to be able to begin their kind of healing journey. We don't think that this product is like the one thing that you absolutely need, but if you're able to actually create space and create a place where you're able to actually start thinking about, you know, what's going on in your psychology, in your physical body, can you actually go out and like start cooking good meals or making better food choices or exercising or doing these other things that are very important for your mental health. If you're able to actually help people get there with good quality nutrition, so they're able to produce the right neurotransmitters and they can get energy into their cells to maybe clear the brain fog that they may be feeling or the dark depression, then it just gives people that little bit of an extra so they can start taking those other extra steps that we know that we need in order to, you know, help ourselves thrive and begin thinking about healing.
Yeah, and healing isn't about just one thing. It's not just about fix my physical body, because we're so much more than that. And one of the reasons I wrote my book is because we're not just our emotions. We're not just our thoughts. We're not just our body. We are so much more than that. And healing is about, yes, the limbic system, dealing with emotions, helping to find calm and peace so the body can recover. It's also about physical wellness in the sense of loving our body, caring for our body, taking care of it through healthy movement, healthy food, making those types of choices, supporting the body in the healing work that it's doing. It's also about our thoughts. I mean, our thoughts can trigger our limbic system. Think about going to a movie, whether it's a disaster movie, a superhero movie, or a rom-com. It's not real. It's all in our thoughts, but yet we feel that emotion. And it's the same way with really learning how to guide and manage our thoughts, because that impacts our limbic system, impacts our body as well. And then also just our relational wellness, how we relate to the outside world, whether that's through relationship with nature, with healthy relationships, healthy boundaries with the people around us, and then a healthy relationship with God or higher power, universe, whatever that means for you. So all of those things come together to create just an overall wellness. We can't pull one out separate because it impacts all those areas of our wellness.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that when we spoke about it earlier in regards to our culture has evolved way beyond our biology at this point, and I think that we have massively lost a spiritual aspect within ourselves and within our communities. And I think that's like I think it's a sixth sense that we've kind of always had that we've kind of lost, which is, you know, a sense that it's an absolute miracle and a gift that we're even here, that we're sitting on this floating rock, which is traveling, you know, spinning around at absurd speeds in the middle of space. Like I can only imagine, you know, 1,000 years ago, when you look up to the stars when there was no light pollution, what people would have seen and what awe they would have had and what spiritual connection they would have had of something so much bigger than themselves. And they would have had to have lived kind of like more outside of their body and know that they were connected to something that they couldn't even possibly even begin to explain. And then they start creating stories of the stars and the gods and all these amazing things to just try and make some sort of sense of it, because it would have been such an amazing thing. And I think, yeah, we've absolutely gone a little bit backwards in regards to our connection to spirituality, whether that's to a particular religion or whatever that might be for somebody. But I think when it comes to spirituality, I think that not only does it connect you a lot better to yourself, and you connect your mind and your body a little bit better, but also connects you with other human beings, which is, without question, a massive vitamin that we absolutely need. We obviously need all the necessary nutrients within our food, but we need like vitamin N, which is like nature. We need vitamin C, community. I think that's a very, very important piece that's absolutely missing, because I think human beings are quite wonderful things. And when we've got a culture that's kind of driven by screens and driven by stress and busyness, it could be very difficult to actually, find the time to sit with somebody, look them in the eye, and just like be present and be with them. And I think when some people actually do that, it can be a big healing moment for them. I know that when I started practicing nutrition, I think like 9 years ago, the biggest thing I noticed right away was people were able to actually feel like they were being listened to. Most of the people who I started to work with had been going to doctors for like 15, 20 years, and they would have these weekly 7-8 minute appointments where they were quick in and quick out, and they couldn't really like dive deep into it. But like my initial consult was like 2 hours long, and I was just asking questions and listening. And then I would ask people at the end of it, like, so how was this for you? And people would just be like, I don't think anyone's listened to me in 20 years. And it was just like a big like nervous system let down. They're able to just like let go of these things. And people are super busy, even people's partners, people's best friends, everyone's got stuff going on, so it can be quite challenging these days to just stop, be in the present moment and be with somebody. So I think that spiritual aspect that you were talking about, I think that is absolutely massively necessary in somebody's healing journey. And there are many ways in which you can channel that spiritual element in your life.
Well, and looking back from an evolutionary perspective, our nervous systems evolved and were created in community as being safe. So, it used to be that we needed to have tribes and clans and groups that lived together in order to survive. And so our safety was wrapped up in being part of a community. Isolation would have meant death. Mm-hmm. And so now in our current culture, we're so much more isolated. And so we really need to have those healthy relationships and those healthy connections for our limbic system to be able to feel safe and to relax and let down. Sometimes we can feel like we have connection, whether it's through screen time or, just these other ways but that really doesn't meet the needs of our limbic system to be able to feel safe. And we pick up the emotions of the people around us. Again, a survival strategy of our nervous system. Because if the whole group is fearful and on guard, we better be fearful and on guard as well. If the whole tribe is calm and at peace, then okay, I can be calm and at peace now. But when we are around other people who are also stressed, which it's very common in our cultures now, a lot of us are stressed, that then we pick up more of that stress and we just keep feeding it and it just keeps multiplying, rather than being able to have those healthy boundaries and to be able to maintain our own peace and calm.
Beautiful. Well said. Love it. What do you think? What are some practical, accessible tools or maybe daily habits that someone can use to begin kind of calming an overactive limbic system, even if they're still in kind of the thick of their chronic symptoms?
Yeah, and that's just such a great question. When we've been in, and I remember this, when we've been in this place of that limbic trigger, we usually don't even realize that we're in it because it's become so natural. It's just become our baseline. And so when we try and slow down and be calm, it can feel really uncomfortable at first. But really, some of those first steps are going to be take a few minutes to slow down and take some breaths. Take some time to sit in nature or to walk in nature, turning off devices and just having some time to breathe and listen to what's going on internally. And that can feel really uncomfortable because, again, culturally, we've not been taught to deal with emotions or thoughts in a way that can always be productive. And especially if we have some things that have been kind of backed up in there, can feel uncomfortable. So really taking time every day to just check in with ourselves. How am I doing emotionally today? And we can slow down and some things might come up. How am I doing physically today? I really just need to get some movement. A really good meal would feel really good to me right now. Being able to, how am I doing mentally? What are the thoughts that are floating around in my head? What is my self-talk like right now? And then just relationally, how are my relationships? How is my relationship with God or spirit? How is my relationship with the world around me right now? All of those things. And it doesn't need to be an hour. It can be 2 minutes at first. These small baby steps taken consistently really add up. When we say these big, I'm going to do an hour meditation a day, it can be overwhelming. And then we can shut down. When we take small, gentle steps, then we can build that presence and build the ability to process these things so that we can bring the limbic system down. And really this whole process, it's more like the old tortoise and the hare. Be the tortoise, not the hare. Take the small, gentle steps to take care of ourselves, bringing down that limbic system, being present rather than those big ones that can lead to burnout.
Beautiful. That was wonderful. I think so many things that people can take from it. And I think, starting small and starting simple is without question the best way to go. And there's so many wonderful tools to be able to start reconnecting and becoming a little bit more internal with your thought process, connecting your mind and body, checking in. I think that can go seriously long way to beginning that journey of healing, which is, we're all on. And it's not a steady linear path that it's going to go as ups and downs, but it's it's a journey, and it's can be powerful to be on that and take responsibility for it for yourself. Beautiful. But before we sign off, can you just tell us a little bit about your book? Who's it for? Why did you write it? And where can people get it?
So my book, Rewire Your Wellness. I really go into these different areas of emotional wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, and relational wellness, and how they all work together to help us to be able to deal with really the world around us and what's going on around us. We can get stuck in these patterns of chronic illness, chronic symptoms, when we can, look at all those different areas and meet our body's needs. Then we have the ability to be able to heal so many different things, and to even beyond healing the things, being able to live a life that is full of connection and joy and calm. And so being able to better guide the life that we want to be able to lead. One of the things that I learned through my process is that we are not our emotions, we're not our thoughts, we're not our body, we're not what other people see in us, but that we are, sometimes it's called our higher self, sometimes our mindful self, that part of us that is able to make choices we have values, we have the ability to create the direction that we want to go in our life. So those other areas don't need to lead us, but we can guide the direction that we want to be able to take. So we have more power than we think that we do.
Beautiful. And if someone wanted to grab the book or learn more about your work, where would they go?
It's available worldwide on Amazon, as well as in some of the bigger in-person retailers as well, but definitely online on Amazon.
Beautiful. Well, I will make sure there's a link to Amazon on there in the show notes, as well as to your website as well. But I just want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. I learned a lot. This was a really fun conversation. We could have spoken so much more about so many different aspects, but I think we kind of wrapped it up beautifully with an introduction of the limbic system. I think that we shared many tools and tips in regards to what people can do right now, as well as like helping people maybe retrospectively look about how and why we are in certain situations. So I think it's been no, for me anyway, I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. What about you?
I have as well. I really appreciate just the great conversation. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, Lori. Well, thank you so much again. That is it for this episode of True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. I'll make sure that there are links to Lori's book and her amazing website in the show notes so you can connect with there. And I'm sure she's super open to questions. And I know that she's got a free call option as well that you can schedule on her website. So certainly jump on that opportunity to chat with Lori, because it's been wonderful just chatting about her work and conversing here. But that is it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. You can leave us a review on iTunes if you fancy it. But that's it for this week. We'll see you soon.